The summer heat in Memphis was a thick blanket, heavy and still. Even inside the air-conditioned sanctuary of Graceland. Lily, at 16, had been to her great-uncle Elvis's mansion more times than she could count. Her grandmother, Elvis's cousin, lived just a few miles away, and Graceland was a frequent, almost sacred stop on their visits. But even with her family connection, Lily still felt a thrill every time she stepped through the gates, walking the same paths the king himself once did. Today, however, a familiar boredom was starting to creep in. She'd seen the jungle room countless times, admired the sparkly jumpsuits, and listened to the same audio tour narration that droned on about his rise to fame, his generosity, his love for karate. It was all amazing, of course, but after a while the legend started to overshadow the man. Lily found herself wondering about the quiet moments, the parts of Elvis Presley that didn't make it into the documentaries or the merchandise. Who was he when the cameras were off? When the roar of the crowd faded, she was trailing behind her grandmother, who was chatting with one of the older tour guides, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a wealth of stories. Lily wasn't really listening, her gaze drifting over the opulent decor of the living room. Suddenly, a snippet of conversation snagged her attention. Always said he needed a place just for him, the tour guide was murmuring, her voice low. Somewhere he could truly be Elvis, Aaron Presley, not the king, never found it though, or maybe just never showed it. Lily's ears perked up. A place just for him? She asked, stepping closer. What do you mean? The guide, Mrs. Gable, smiled faintly. A place where he could escape all the noise, all the demands. Lily's eyes widened. A secret room. This was new. She'd never heard this on the audio tour. Really? A secret room? Where? No one ever knew for sure. It was just talk. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. If he did, he certainly kept it under wraps. He was very good at that when he wanted to be. Sometimes I think he wished he could just disappear for a little while. Just be a normal man with his thoughts. Gable's words had stirred something in her. A secret room. The idea was thrilling. It felt like a missing piece of the puzzle. A hidden dimension to the larger-than-life figure. She only knew from records and movies. If it existed, it would be a window into the real Elvis, the man beneath the rhinestone jumpsuits, and the slicked-back hair for the rest of the tour. Lily's mind was buzzing. She looked at every wall, every bookshelf, every piece of furniture with new eyes. Was there a hidden latch, a disguised door? The sheer size of Graceland, combined with its intricate layout, made it seem like the perfect place for a secret. The public parts were well documented. But what about the parts they didn't show, the parts only family and close staff ever saw? Later that evening, back at her grandmother's house, Lily found herself drawn to the old photo albums. Pages filled with faded pictures of Elvis, as a child skinny and earnest, as a teenager already radiating a magnetic charm, as a young man exploding onto the scene, his smile electrifying. She saw pictures of him at Graceland, laughing with friends by the pool, playing football on the lawn. He looked happy, but in some of the later pictures there was a weariness in his eyes, a subtle shadow. She remembered Mrs. Gable's words. Somewhere he could truly be Elvis Aaron Presley, the king, the legend, the man who had everything. Yet, if the rumors were true, he still sought a hidden sanctuary. What would be inside such a place? Not just trophies, surely. He had an entire trophy room for those. This room, if it existed, would be different. It would be a place of quiet reflection, of personal treasures, of a soul laid bare. Lily thought about her own need for privacy, for moments of solitude, away from the constant noise of high school, social media, and family expectations. If she, a relatively unknown teenager, felt that need, how much more intensely must Elvis have felt it, living under the scrutiny of millions? The idea took root in her mind. A tiny seed of curiosity that promised to blossom into a full-blown obsession. She wanted to know. She wanted to find it. Not for fame, not for money, but for understanding. She wanted to connect with the private man, the one who wasn't on display. Before bed, she scrolled through old fan forums online, searching for any mention of a secret room at Graceland. Most results were wild conspiracy theories, or dismissed the idea as mere urban legend. But here and there she found a few tantalizing threads. An old interview with a former employee vaguely mentioning private projects. A fan recalling a tour guide once hinting at hidden spaces. Nothing concrete, but enough to keep the embers of possibility glowing. Lily lay in bed the Memphis night outside her window, humming with crickets. She closed her eyes and pictured Graceland, not as a museum, but as a living house full of secrets, whispering stories, and somewhere within its walls, perhaps, a hidden door waited to reveal the true heart of the king. She decided right then that she would try to find it. It felt less like a treasure hunt and more like an archaeological dig into the soul of her famous relative, a man she felt she still didn't truly know. The next morning, Lily woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. The idea of the secret room wasn't just a fleeting thought anymore, it was a mission. She needed a starting point, something more concrete than vague rumors. Her grandmother, a wellspring of family history, seemed like the obvious first step. But Lily knew better than to directly ask about a secret room. Her grandmother would just dismiss it as silly or worse, warn her not to meddle. Instead, Lily decided to be subtle. She casually brought up Elvis during breakfast, asking about his routines, his favorite spots in the house. "Grandma, did Uncle Elvis ever have any special projects he worked on around the house, like building something or renovating a specific area?" Her grandmother, busy stirring her coffee, paused. "He was a performer, not a carpenter," she chuckled. Lily tried another angle. "What about his personal office? Did he have one like where he kept his private papers?" "Oh, he had a few spots he liked to work from," her grandmother mused. "Sometimes he'd be up in his bedroom suite, sometimes in the music room. But he wasn't really a desk man. He liked to move around. He'd often write song ideas on napkins or sketch things that sparked a tiny flame." "Did he ever keep any of those sketches?" "Some. I suppose there's a box of old papers in the attic, some of his childhood drawings, schoolwork, maybe some doodling from later. I haven't looked through it in ages." An old box in the attic. Lily managed to convince her grandmother that afternoon that she wanted to organize the attic, offering to help declutter. Her grandmother, delighted by the unexpected offer, readily agreed. The attic was hot, dusty, and crammed with decades of family memories. Lily meticulously sorted through boxes, blowing dust off old photo frames, rusty tools, and forgotten holiday decorations. And then she found it. A sturdy cardboard box labeled in faded handwriting. Elvis, Early Papers. Inside, nestled among school reports and old letters, was a stack of loose papers. Most were sheet music, some with scribbled notes, but a few were unexpected. There were several rough sketches, surprisingly detailed for quick doodles. One depicted a fantastical car, another a caricature of a band member. But one drawing made Lily pause. It was a rough architectural sketch, not professional blueprint, but clearly a design. It showed a small, square room, labeled Sanctuary, connected to a larger, familiar-looking structure, Graceland. It wasn't drawn to scale, but the outlines of windows and the recognizable turrets suggested the mansion's distinctive silhouette. What was odd was the placement of the sanctuary room. It seemed to be tucked away, almost hidden, bordering an exterior wall that didn't appear to have any extensions in real life. The lines were faint, almost erased in places, as if Elvis himself had second thoughts about putting it on paper. Below the sketch, in elegant, familiar handwriting, was a short note. "Need a place of my own, away from the noise, away from the world, a quiet corner where I can hear myself think again, a sacred space." Lily's heart pounded. This wasn't just a rumor, this was a personal confession, a glimpse into his desire for solitude. And the sketch, it looked like a conceptual design for the very secret room Mrs. Gable had mentioned. But where? The sketch was too vague to pinpoint an exact location. Just then, her great-uncle Ray, her grandmother's younger brother, and a distant cousin of Elvis, he'd also played guitar with Elvis early on, arrived for dinner. Uncle Ray was a treasure trove of Elvis stories, having been around during those wild early years. He was a quiet man now, his hair silver, his hands gnarled from years of playing guitar, but his eyes still held a spark when he talked about Elvis. During dinner, Lily carefully brought up the sketch. "Uncle Ray, I found this in the attic. Do you recognize it?" She slid the faded paper across the table. Uncle Ray picked it up, his brow furrowing slightly as he put on his reading glasses. He studied it for a long moment, a nostalgic smile playing on his lips. "Well, I'll be. This takes me back." He tapped the paper. Elvis was always doodling. He had a creative mind, you know, not just for music. He'd sketch ideas for clothes, for furniture, even for cars. He was always thinking, always dreaming. Do you remember him talking about building something like this? Uncle Ray's smile faded a little, replaced by a thoughtful frown. He did talk about it now that you mention it. He used to say Graceland was grand, but it wasn't his quiet place. Said he felt like he was living in a fishbowl. Sometimes he needed somewhere he could just be. I remember him talking about wanting a space where he could just read, or play his gospel music without interruption, or just sit and think. A real hideaway. He never said he built it. Did he ever show you any plans? Lily pressed gently. Uncle Ray shook his head. Nah, he was a very private man about some things, especially as he got older and the fame got heavier. He might talk about an idea, but then he'd keep the details to himself. He looked at the sketch again, a faraway look in his eyes. Talked about wanting a place that was just his. No interruptions, no demands, where he could just be Elvis Aaron Presley. Not the king, just the boy from Tupelo. This was it. This wasn't just a vague rumor anymore. This was a confirmed desire from Elvis himself. The puzzle pieces were starting to align. The sanctuary. A place for the boy from Tupelo. Do you remember where he might have wanted to put it? Lily asked, trying to sound casual. Uncle Ray shrugged. He was always rambling about the north side near the old stables, or maybe even in the cellar. Said it needed to be somewhere out of sight, somewhere nobody would think to look. He handed the sketch back to Lily. He was a dreamer, that boy, always reaching for something more, something deeper. Lily clutched the sketch. Out of sight somewhere, nobody would think to look. That was a vital clue. Her mission had just become infinitely more intriguing. The hunt for Elvis's secret sanctuary, the true heart of the king, had officially begun. The sketch Lily found was her compass, but Graceland was a maze. She knew she couldn't just walk in and start knocking on walls. Security cameras, tour guides, and the sheer volume of visitors meant she had to be incredibly discreet. Her new strategy was simple: blend in, observe, and learn. She volunteered to help out at Graceland as a summer intern, an idea her grandmother readily approved, seeing it as a way for Lily to learn about the family legacy. This gave Lily legitimate access to the mansion beyond the public tour route, especially after hours. She spent her days learning about Graceland's history, but her nights and every spare moment were dedicated to her secret quest. Lily started by meticulously studying the public areas of Graceland, comparing them to the vague lines on the sketch. The sanctuary seemed to be an addition, not an existing room. This meant it would either be cleverly hidden within the existing structure, or an external addition that looked like part of the original building from the outside. Her first target was the north side of the mansion, as Uncle Ray had suggested. She spent hours walking the perimeter of the property, her eyes scanning every brick, every window. She paid close attention to the exterior walls, looking for any inconsistencies, any brickwork that didn't quite match, any subtle seams that might indicate a hidden door. Nothing. The exterior was flawlessly maintained. A perfect facade. Next, she turned her attention to the interior. Graceland had many rooms that weren't part of the public tour: staff offices, storage areas, and of course the upstairs, which remained private and off-limits to visitors. Lily knew she couldn't just wander into restricted areas without permission, so she relied on her intern status to get glimpses. She'd offer to help carry boxes or deliver messages, always keeping her eyes peeled. She realized quickly that the sketch was too crude to pinpoint an exact spot. The sanctuary was a small, roughly square room, but its precise connection to the main house was unclear. She needed more detailed information about the house's structure. One afternoon, while sorting through old Graceland archives in a dusty back office, she stumbled upon a box labeled Property Records and Blueprints, 1950s, 1970s. Her heart pounded. This was exactly what she needed. She carefully pulled out a rolled-up blueprint dated 1957, the year Elvis bought Graceland. It showed the original layout of the house. Lily spread it out on a large table, her fingers tracing the familiar rooms. She compared it to the sketch she had found. The sketch showed the sanctuary as an addition, not part of the original house. This meant it would have been built later. She found other blueprints from the 60s and 70s detailing various renovations and additions, like the racquetball court and the meditation garden. She scanned them all, looking for any indication of a hidden room, an undocumented space. Still nothing. Every room was accounted for. It seemed Elvis had truly kept it secret, if it existed. The blueprints for the public parts of the house showed no anomalies. But what about the unseen parts? The basement, for example. The Graceland basement was a sprawling, somewhat labyrinthine space, mostly used for storage and staff facilities. It wasn't part of the public tour, but Lily had been down there a few times on errands. It was dark, somewhat damp, and full of forgotten corners. Lily revisited Uncle Ray. She invited him for lunch, hoping his memory might be jogged by a relaxed conversation. "Uncle Ray," she began, "you said Elvis wanted a place to just be himself. Did he ever mention where he felt most at peace at Graceland?" Uncle Ray thought for a moment, stirring his iced tea. "Peace. He loved the quiet of the meditation garden Fortur. And just look out the window. But mostly I think he found peace when he was creating, when he was singing, playing guitar, writing. That's when he was truly alive, truly himself. That's when he was truly alive, truly himself." Did he ever have a special place for his writing or his music? That wasn't the music room or his bedroom. Uncle Ray's eyes twinkled. Well, he had his own little setup in the basement. Sometimes, just a small corner away from everything, he'd put on his gospel records and just listen. Or sometimes he'd noodle on his guitar down there late at night when everyone else was asleep. Said it had good acoustics. This aligned with Uncle Ray's earlier hint about somewhere nobody would think to look, and the idea of Elvis retreating there to listen to gospel music, to play his guitar in solitude, perfectly matched the concept of a sanctuary. That evening, after the last visitors had left and most of the staff had gone home, Lily found herself in the basement. It was cooler down there, and the air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting long, eerie shadows. She walked slowly, methodically down the main hallway, past storage rooms filled with old stage props, Christmas decorations, and countless boxes of fan mail. She remembered Uncle Ray saying it was a small corner, not a grand room. She looked for any unusual walls, any sections that seemed out of place. Most of the walls were concrete or rough brick. She ran her hand along them, feeling for any difference in texture, any slight give. Then she noticed something. Near an old, disused boiler, in a dimly lit alcove, a section of the wall looked different. It wasn't rough concrete. It was covered in some kind of paneling painted to match the surrounding wall, but if you looked closely, the grain of the wood didn't quite line up. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. She knocked on it lightly. The sound was duller, more hollow than the solid thud of the concrete next to it. Lily's breath hitched. This had to be it. She looked for seams, for handles, for anything. There was nothing obvious. She ran her fingers along the edges, feeling for a crack, a line. Her fingers brushed against a tiny indentation, a barely visible groove, no bigger than her thumbnail, along the top edge of one of the panels. It felt like a release latch, but it was incredibly subtle, almost camouflaged by dust and the irregular texture of the paint. She pressed down on the tiny indentation. Nothing. She tried pulling. Frustration flickered, but then she remembered Elvis's love for gadgets and puzzles. This wouldn't be a simple handle. She remembered a story Uncle Ray told about Elvis loving spy movies. He'd often joke about secret passages and hidden compartments. Lily thought about what a secret door would need to be truly secret. It would need to be almost invisible, requiring a specific, non-obvious action. She looked around the alcove, the old boiler, a stack of forgotten crates, and then her eyes landed on a small, unassuming coat hook mounted on the wall adjacent to the suspect panel. It was just a normal brass coat hook a few inches above her head, but something about it felt deliberate. She reached up and tugged on the coat hook, just in case it didn't budge. She pushed it upwards. Nothing. Then, almost on a whim, she twisted it. Slowly, with a faint, almost inaudible click, a narrow vertical seam appeared in the paneling, extending from the top to the bottom. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The real hunt was just beginning. With the faint seam revealed the Lee. She see, with a family, Eddie, Tazali, but the door. If it door. What? She tried to wedge her fingernail into the crack, but it was too narrow. She needed something thin yet sturdy. Her eyes scanned the basement floor, looking for anything that might help. A forgotten ruler, a discarded piece of metal, nothing. Lily decided to retreat for the night. It was late, and she didn't want to risk being discovered. The excitement of her discovery warred with the frustration of the unyielding door. She spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the moment she found the seam, trying to imagine how Elvis would have designed it to open. The next day, she subtly carried a thin metal ruler from her grandmother's sewing kit in her backpack when she went to Graceland. She spent the day doing her intern duties, but her mind was consumed with the secret room. She kept envisioning the panel, the faint seam, the elusive mechanism. That evening, after the last tour bus departed, Lily made her way back to the basement. The lights hummed, creating an almost eerie silence. She approached the alcove, her heart thudding a nervous rhythm against her ribs. She pulled out the ruler. She carefully inserted the thin edge of the ruler into the seam, trying to pry it open. It was stiff, resistant. She tried at the top, in the middle, in the bottom. Nothing gave. She was beginning to despair. What if it wasn't a door? But the hollow sound, the slight give of the panel, and the disguised seam all pointed to one thing. Then she remembered something. She pushed it in again, but nothing. The box. What if it wasn't a pull or a push? What if it was a slide? She focused on the coat hook mechanism. There was a secondary action. She twisted it the other way. No, that closed the seam. She pushed it in again, but nothing. She took a deep breath, trying to channel Elvis's playful, ingenious spirit. If he wanted it truly secret, it wouldn't be easy. She looked at the panel again, focusing on the subtle irregularities. There was a tiny, almost invisible bump on the lower edge near the floor. It was so small, she almost missed it. She pressed it with her thumb. Suddenly, with a soft, muffled thud, a section of the panel slid inward a few inches, then to the side, revealing a dark opening. Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. It was real. It was actually real, a hidden passage, exactly as the rumors had suggested. A wave of exhilaration washed over her, followed quickly by a shiver of apprehension. What would she find inside? She peered into the darkness. The air felt different, cooler, stiller. It smelled faintly of old paper. And something else she couldn't quite place. Perhaps a faint hint of tobacco or old leather mixed with a musty scent of a long, undisturbed space. She didn't have a flashlight. She pulled out her phone and switched on its flashlight app, directing the beam into the opening. The light cut through the gloom, revealing a narrow, short hallway leading to a wooden door. The hallway itself was unadorned, just plain walls, no decoration. It felt like a transition space, deliberately unremarkable. The door at the end of the short passage was a simple, sturdy wooden door, not grand or ornate like the doors in the rest of Graceland. It had a plain brass doorknob. Lily felt a strange mix of reverence and trepidation. She was about to step into a part of Elvis Presley's life that no one else had seen, or at least no one had seen in a very long time. This wasn't about the rock star anymore. This was about the man. As she reached for the doorknob, she heard footsteps overhead. Her heart leaped into her throat. Someone was in the house. Was it a late working staff member, security? She froze, pressing herself against the wall of the narrow passage. Her flashlight beam extinguished. The footsteps passed, moving away. She held her breath until the sound faded. Completely. That was too close. She had to be more careful. She waited a full 5 minutes, listening intently, before daring to move again. The house was silent once more, save for the distant hum of the refrigerators in the kitchen. She took a steadying breath, reminding herself that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She reached out and slowly turned the brass doorknob. It gave way with a soft, almost soundless click. She pushed the door open just a crack, letting her phone's faint light filter into the room beyond. She was about to enter Elvis Presley's secret world. The anticipation was almost unbearable. This wasn't just finding a room. This was uncovering a piece of his soul, a hidden chapter in the story of the king. She pushed the door open wider and stepped inside, pulling the heavy wooden door shut behind her, plunging the passage back into darkness and sealing herself inside. The smell of the room enveloped her, more distinct now. Old paper, faint wood smoke, and something indefinable, deeply personal. The moment Lily stepped inside the secret room and closed the door behind her, a profound silence enveloped her. It was a silence unlike any she had experienced in Graceland before. The usual hum of the air conditioning, the distant murmur of traffic outside, the ghost of tour guides' voices, all were absent here. It was a true pocket of quiet, as if sound itself had been carefully excluded. She clicked on her phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across the small space. The room was not large, perhaps 15 by 15 feet, but it felt vast in its implication. The air was cool and still thick with the scent she'd noticed before, old paper-dried flowers and a faint, almost imperceptible hint of a sweet pipe tobacco that she vaguely remembered from childhood stories of her great-uncle. The room was simple, almost Spartan, yet it exuded a deep sense of peace and intimacy. The walls were paneled in a warm, dark wood. Not flashy or ornate like the jungle room, but rich and inviting. A single, small, arched window high on one wall was covered by a thick, dark velvet curtain, letting in only a sliver of muted light that painted a faint glow on the floor. This was the light she had seen from the outside. In the center of the room stood a worn leather armchair, its cushions molded to the shape of a person who had spent countless hours there. Beside it, a small, unassuming side table held a simple, classic-looking record player. Not the extravagant models Elvis often gifted, but an older, more personal one, a stack of Pilog records. Against one wall, a simple wooden bookshelf, unpainted and unassuming, was filled with books. Not celebrity biographies or music industry manuals, but a collection of diverse titles, philosophy, history, religious texts, and even some classic literature. This was a different side of Elvis than the tabloids portrayed. Another wall held a large, beautifully crafted wooden cabinet, its doors closed. On the floor beside it, leaned against the wall, was a guitar case, a simple battered one. Not the shiny custom-made instruments she'd seen in the Graceland trophy room. Lily's flashlight beam danced across the contents, her mind reeling. This wasn't a trophy room or a party space. This was a sanctuary, just as the sketch had called it. This was where Elvis came to shed the persona of the king and simply be. She walked slowly, reverently towards the armchair. She ran her hand over the soft, worn leather, imagining Elvis sitting there deep in thought, seeking solace. On the side table, next to the record player, there was an old leather-bound journal. Its pages were thick and yellowed, clearly very old. Lily hesitated, her fingers hovering over it. This felt incredibly personal, like peering directly into someone's soul. But the allure was too strong. She had come this far. She picked up the journal. The leather was soft beneath her fingertips, the edges worn smooth from countless hours of handling. She opened it to a random page. The handwriting was unmistakably Elvis's, bold, yet with a surprisingly delicate look to some of the letters. It wasn't formal or polished. It was raw, heartfelt. Offers. Some were musings on fame, others on faith, still others on the simplest pleasures of life. One entry read, "The noise never stops. Even when it's quiet, it's still there, inside my head. This room, this is the only place it quiets. Here, I can hear the hum of my own heart, not the roar of the crowd." Lily felt a lump form in her throating for the human behind the legend. She carefully placed the journal back down and turned her attention to the records beside the player. They weren't rock and roll. She saw albums by Mahalia Jackson, the Golden Gate Quartet, Jim Reeves, gospel and country, the music that had truly shaped him, the music he returned to when he needed comfort and inspiration. She could almost hear the rich, soulful voices filling the quiet room. Next, she moved to the bookshelf. The books ranged from philosophical texts by Emerson to historical accounts of the Civil War, biographies of Abraham Lincoln, and countless copies of the Bible in different translations. There were also books on numerology, spirituality, and martial arts, subjects she knew Elvis had a keen interest in, but rarely discussed publicly. This was his library of wisdom, his source of quiet learning. Finally, she approached the wooden cabinet. Its surface was smooth, polished with age. She tentatively opened the double doors. Inside, on velvet-lined shelves, were treasures of a different kind. Not gold records or awards, but profoundly personal items. On the top shelf, a small, worn photograph of his mother, Gladys, framed in a simple silver frame. Her eyes held a deep sadness, yet a quiet strength. Beside it, a child's worn baseball glove and a tiny carved wooden bird, perhaps a memento from his childhood in Tupelo. On another shelf, a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Lily didn't dare read them, sensing their deeply personal nature, but she imagined them to be from loved ones, or perhaps unsent letters from Elvis himself, pouring out his heart. And then on the very bottom shelf was a small, unassuming wooden box. Lily opened it carefully. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a single, perfectly preserved white gardenia. It looked almost real, but the faint, sweet scent suggested it was either exceptionally well preserved or very realistic, were his mother's favorite flower. This was a profound, tender gesture. Lily felt tears sting her eyes. This room wasn't just a hideaway. It was a memorial to his truest self, a sacred space holding the fragments of his soul that the world never saw. This was the Elvis who yearned for simplicity, for truth, for connection beyond the blinding lights of fame. She felt a profound privilege and a deep responsibility for having found it. Lily sat in the worn leather armchair, her phone's flashlight illuminating the room, though its battery was steadily depleting. The silence was still profound, punctuated only by the soft click of her phone's buttons as she took a few cautious photos. Not to share, but to remember, to prove to herself that this was real. The air, despite being still, felt alive with a quiet energy, a palpable sense of Elvis's presence. She reached for the journal again, feeling a pull she couldn't resist. She opened it to a page she hadn't seen before. The handwriting was more hurried here, almost desperate. "It reminds me of Mama, of Tupelo, of why I started. It keeps me sane." Lily traced the words with her finger, her heart aching. The loneliness, the struggle to maintain his identity amidst the overwhelming fame. It was all laid bare in these raw confessions. This wasn't the flamboyant, confident king she knew from documentaries. This was a man wrestling with his own reality, desperately trying to hold on to his true self. She looked at the collection of gospel records again. She pictured him sitting here, listening to Mahalia Jackson's powerful voice, finding solace in the hymns that reminded him of his childhood, of simpler times, of his deep faith. This room was a tether to his roots, a grounding force, in a life that was constantly pulling him higher and further away. Lily stood up and walked over to the guitar case. It was old, worn with scuffs and scratches that told a story of countless journeys. She gently unlatched. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was a beautiful, unassuming acoustic guitar. It wasn't a fancy custom-made instrument, but a simple, well-loved Martin. The wood was dark, smooth from years of handling, and a faint, sweet smell of aged wood emanated from it. She knew Elvis had dozens of guitars, but this one felt different. It felt like his guitar, the one he played when no one was watching, the one he poured his heart into. She carefully lifted it. It was lighter than she expected, perfectly balanced. The strings felt old, perhaps long dead. But she imagined them singing under his powerful hands. This was a performer's instrument, yes, but it was also a companion, a confidant. She gently strummed a chord. A soft, slightly muted twang echoed in the quiet room. It felt like a whisper from the past. She imagined him sitting in that armchair picking out melodies, perhaps writing some of the intensely personal lyrics she'd yet to uncover. This wasn't just a prop. It was a tool for self-expression, a way for him to find his voice when the public persona became too loud. Her eyes drifted to the small arched window with its thick velvet curtain. She carefully pulled back a corner of the curtain. Outside the window looked onto a secluded, overgrown part of the Graceland grounds, far from any public path. It was almost completely hidden by dense foliage. From the outside, it would look like a section of a forgotten wall, easily overlooked. This truly was a hidden sanctuary. The genius of its concealment struck her again. No wonder no one had found it. On a small hidden shelf behind the bookshelf, Lily noticed a collection of photo albums. These were not the professionally bound albums of his public life. These were smaller, more personal. With faded covers, she opened one. Inside were snapshots clearly taken by friends or family. Pictures of Elvis on vacation, looking relaxed and happy, without the weight of his image. Pictures of him playing with his dogs, clowning around with friends, simply being a young man enjoying life. There were also photos of his childhood, many she hadn't seen before. Elvis and his twin brother, Jesse, who had died at birth, though Jesse was just a faint memory in her grandmother's stories. His parents, young and hopeful, his early homes in Tupelo. One photo caught her eye. A young Elvis, perhaps 12 or 13, sitting on a porch step, holding an old battered guitar, his face solemn, deeply absorbed in the music. It was a stark reminder of where he came from, the humble beginnings that fueled his dreams. This was the boy from Tupelo. The boy who loved music more than anything long before he became the king. This room was a time capsule. A carefully curated collection of memories and objects that spoke to Elvis's authentic self. It was a space for reflection, for grounding, for reconnecting with the person he was before the world demanded he be someone else. Lily felt a profound sense of privilege, almost a sacred trust. She was witnessing a side of Elvis Presley that very few, if any, had ever seen. This was his inner world, preserved and protected. The warmth she felt wasn't just from the physical space. It was from the palpable sense of humanity that permeated every inch of the room. It was heartbreaking and heartwarming all at once. She knew she needed to be careful with this discovery. This wasn't something to exploit or publicize. This was something to understand, to cherish, and perhaps to learn from. The king had built his castle, but he had also built a quiet corner for his soul. And Lily, by some twist of fate, had been invited in. Lily spent what felt like hours in the secret room, meticulously exploring every detail. Each item she touched, each corner she investigated, peeled back another layer of the public persona, revealing the tender, complex man beneath. She returned to the large wooden cabinet, its contents beckoning her. Beyond the family photos in the gardenia, she found a stack of small leather-bound notebooks. These weren't the polished journals she'd first seen, but smaller, more casual pocket notebooks. She opened one. Inside, the pages were filled with fragmented thoughts, song, lyrics, and poems scribbled in various stages of completion. Some were clearly discarded song ideas, too personal, or perhaps too unconventional. For his name, fame's a lonely road, paved with golden tears. A million voices cheer, but none truly hear. But still, I yearn for home, no matter how far. This was not the Elvis who sang Jailhouse Rock or Hound Dog. This was the soul of an artist grappling with the isolation of celebrity. Lily could almost hear his voice, softer, more vulnerable, singing these quiet, melancholic lines. Another notebook contained a series of simple, almost childlike drawings. Sketches of Graceland's gates. A portrait of a smiling Lisa Marie as a toddler. And several drawings of horses, majestic and powerful, clearly drawn with affection. Elvis's love for horses was well known, but seeing these personal, unpolished sketches gave Lily a glimpse into his quiet moments of observation and appreciation. He wasn't just owning horses, he was studying them, finding beauty in them, tucked away at the bottom of the cabinet beneath a pile of old scarves, not his performance scarves, but simple, worn ones perhaps from his mother or a beloved friend. Lily found a small wooden box. It was unadorned, made of plain, light-colored wood. Inside lay a single, perfectly preserved, dried flower. A small, vibrant blue. Lily had no idea what kind of flower it was, but it felt incredibly significant. Perhaps a gift from someone special or a remembrance of a specific day. Its simple beauty spoke volumes about the care with which it had been kept. Beside the flower was a single tarnished silver locket. She carefully opened it. Inside, nestled on either side, were two tiny, almost indistinguishable locks of hair. One dark brown, almost black, felt like Elvis's own. The other, a lighter, almost golden shade, surely belonged to someone deeply cherished. Her mind immediately went to his mother, Gladys, and his daughter, Lisa Marie. It was a tangible piece of his heart, a physical connection to the people who meant the most to him. This was what the secret room was about. Not just escape, but preservation. Preservation of memories, of love, of the self he dared not show to the world. Each item was a relic, not of a king, but of a son, a father, a dreamer, a man of faith. Lily imagined Elvis late at night slipping into this room, turning on the record player, letting the soulful sounds of gospel fill the space, sitting in the armchair, perhaps reading from his Bible or sketching out a new idea, or simply holding the locket, remembering his loved ones. This room was his confessional, his sanctuary, his personal museum of the soul. She thought about the immense pressure he must have felt. The constant touring, the demands of the music industry, the intense public scrutiny. It was easy to see how a man could lose himself in all that. This room was his anchor, the place he returned to in order to find himself again. She picked up a small, smooth river stone from a display on the side table. It was just a simple, ordinary stone, but it felt warm in her hand, as if it had been held many times. Perhaps it was from a place he loved, a memory of a peaceful moment. Every item, no matter how small or unassuming, held profound meaning here. Lily's phone battery flickered, a stark reminder of the passing time. She knew she couldn't stay much longer. She had absorbed so much already, felt so deeply. The true Elvis, the one who built this room, was far more complex, more sensitive, and more profoundly human than any celebrity magazine or documentary could ever convey. She felt a deep sense of connection to him now, not as the global superstar, but as a relative, a fellow human being navigating the complexities of life, yearning for peace and authenticity. This room had gifted her a version of Elvis Presley she never knew existed, and it was a version she would forever cherish. She carefully replaced each item, leaving the room exactly as she had found it, respecting its quiet sanctity. As she prepared to leave, she noticed one last detail. On the underside of the small side table, almost invisible, a small faded carving. It was a single word, carved simply but deeply into the wood. Home? This wasn't just a room, it was his spiritual home, the place where he could always return to himself. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, the dwindling light from her phone creating a warm glow around the worn leather journal. She had returned to the journal drawn by a powerful urge to read more of his unfiltered thoughts, his words he never sang. She knew it was incredibly private, but she felt a unique privilege in this moment, a chance to truly understand. She turned to a fresh page and her breath caught. Of gentle hands and mother's grace, a simple love in a quiet place. Lily felt tears well up. This poem was a raw, aching lament for his lost privacy, his yearning for the simplicity of his early life. It revealed a man burdened by the crown, longing for the comfort of ordinary love and faith. This was the king stripped bare of his regalia, a soul crying out for understanding. She flipped through more pages. There were detailed descriptions of dreams, vivid and sometimes unsettling, revealing the pressures that haunted him even in his sleep. There were heartfelt prayers, expressing deep gratitude and desperate pleas for guidance. There were also moments of simple joy, reflections on a sunny afternoon spent with Lisa Marie, or a quiet conversation with his father. One entry without a date seemed to capture the essence of the room. I built this place, but my refuge, not every decision, every hidden hinge, every book chosen, every photograph placed, it's a piece of me. It's where I can come when the world gets too loud, too demanding. It's where I can remind myself of who I am, what truly matters. It's my refuge. I built this place brick by brick, not with my hands, but with my heart. This wasn't just a physical structure. It was a manifestation of his deepest needs and desires. It wasn't a whim, it was a necessity. She also found a series of letters. Some were addressed to himself like a form of self-therapy, processing difficult emotions. Others were unsent letters to loved ones, his father, Priscilla, Lisa, Marie, even to his mother, long after she passed. These were filled with an unvarnished love and regret that he likely couldn't express in person, or perhaps felt too vulnerable to. One letter addressed to my sweet Lisa Marie made Lily's heart ache. It was undated, but clearly written when Lisa Marie was still young. I hope you find your own quiet place someday where you can always be yourself, no matter how loud the world gets. Don't ever let anyone tell you who you are supposed to be. Be true to your own heart. Your daddy will always be cheering you. This was a private message from a father to his daughter, filled with a love so pure, so unguarded, it took Lily's breath away. It was a testament to the fact that beneath the king's public persona, there was a fiercely loving, protective father. The battery icon on her phone flashed red critically low. Lily knew her time was running out. She carefully closed the journal, placing it back on the side table. She felt overwhelmed, yet deeply moved. She had come searching for a secret room, but she had found something far more precious. The secret heart of Elvis Presley. She stood up, taking one last look around the room. The worn armchair, the simple guitar, the records, the books, the cabinet filled with personal mementos. Each piece told a story. This room wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about authenticity, about a man's desperate need to hold on to himself in the face of extraordinary pressure. The silence of the room felt comforting now, not eerie. It was a testament to the man's longing for peace, for connection to his true self. She understood why he built it, and why he kept it so secret. It was the only place where he could truly drop the mask, where he could be vulnerable, where he could be Elvis, Aaron Presley. Lily felt a profound shift within her. She had come to Graceland with a vague curiosity about a legend. She was leaving with a deep personal understanding of a complex, beautiful soul. The story of Elvis Presley to her would never be the same. public persona would always exist. But now she carried the secret of his quiet, unwavering heart hidden in the depths of Graceland, a testament to his eternal search for home. The phone finally died, plunging the secret room into near total darkness, save for the faint sliver of light from the velvet-covered window. Lily stood there for a long moment, letting the profound stillness wash over her. The weight of her discovery settled on her shoulders, heavy yet strangely comforting. She had found not just a room, but a profound piece of Elvis Presley's inner world. Every object, every scribbled note, every carefully preserved memento spoke of a man seeking solace, authenticity, and a return to his roots amidst the chaos of global fame. This was a side of Elvis the world rarely, if ever, saw: vulnerable, reflective, deeply spiritual, and yearning for simplicity. The dilemma of her discovery now pressed down on her. What should she do with this secret? Her first instinct, fueled by the wonder of the find, was to share it. Imagine the headlines. The public would be fascinated. It would reveal a whole new dimension to the king's legacy. It could change how people viewed him forever. But as she stood in the silence, enveloped by the palpable sense of Elvis's presence, she knew that wasn't the right path. This room was built for his peace, for his sanctuary. He had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep it hidden, to protect this sacred space from the very public that adored him. To reveal it now, to turn it into another Graceland exhibit, felt like a betrayal of his deepest wishes. It would strip away the very essence of what made it special: its secrecy, its intimacy, its profound privacy. The idea felt wrong. It would be like opening his most personal diary for public consumption, putting his deepest vulnerabilities on display for curious eyes. He craved a place away from the noise, away from the world. To expose it now would be to violate that wish. Lily thought about the poem she had read. His words about the searing sun of the spotlight. His yearning for simple, honest ground. This room was that ground. This was his truth. This wasn't just a historical discovery. It was a personal connection she had made with a man who, despite his fame, had clearly struggled with the burdens of celebrity. She felt a profound respect for him, for his efforts to maintain a piece of himself, unmarred by public demands. She decided then and there, the secret room would remain a secret. Her secret. It would be a treasure she carried in her heart, a private understanding of her great-uncle that no one else would share. This felt like the ultimate act of respect, the truest way to honor his legacy. She would protect his sanctuary just as he had protected it during his lifetime, but keeping it secret didn't mean it had no impact. This discovery had fundamentally changed her perspective on Elvis. She no longer saw just the legend, the larger-than-life icon. She saw the man, Elvis Presley, full of dreams, struggles, and an enduring need for peace. This understanding would shape how she listened to his music, how she viewed his films, how she told stories about him to her friends. She would carry the spirit of the secret room with her, allowing it to inform her own life. She traced the outline of the hidden door in the dimly lit passage, feeling the cold metal of the coat hook, the subtle bump that revealed the entrance. She knew how to open and close it now, how to make it disappear creaking into the wall. It was a powerful knowledge, a secret she would guard fiercely. Before leaving, she took one last look around the room. In the faint light, the armchair looked like a comforting presence. The guitar case, a silent testament to his passion. The cabinet, a keeper of memories. She imagined him here finding solace, recharging his spirit. She stepped out of the room, gently pulling the heavy door shut behind her. The click was soft final. She closed the outer panel, twisting the coat hook back into its original position, making the seam vanish. The wall was once again a solid, unassuming block of paneling. The alcove returned to its dusty, forgotten state. No one would ever know. As she made her way out of the basement, navigating the familiar corridors of Graceland, the mansion felt different. It was still a grand, iconic place, but now to Lily it held a deeper, more intimate secret. It wasn't just a museum. It was a home, a sanctuary with a hidden heart beating within its walls. She walked out into the cool Memphis night, the stars bright above her. The world still saw the king, but Lily now carried the quiet truth of the man behind the crown. It was a burden, but also a gift. A connection to her family's legacy that was more profound than any she could have imagined. And she knew with absolute certainty that she had done the right thing. Lily emerged from Graceland into the cool night air, the sounds of crickets and distant traffic replacing the profound silence of the secret room. Her mind erased, replaying every detail, every emotion. She felt as though she had just experienced something deeply sacred. A communion with a past she never thought she could touch. She drove home in a daze, the familiar streets of Memphis blurring past her. Graceland, for so long a grand historical landmark, now felt like a living entity, a home with a secret heart. She carried its truth within her, a quiet understanding that transformed her perception of Elvis Presley. The next morning at breakfast with her grandmother and Uncle Ray, Lily found herself looking at them with new eyes. They had known Elvis, seen him, talked to him. They had their own memories, their own understanding of the man. She wondered if they, too, had ever glimpsed that quiet, vulnerable side she had just discovered. "You've been very quiet lately, dear," her grandmother observed, noticing Lily's contemplative silence. "Everything all right at Graceland?" Lily smiled faintly. "It's more than all right, Grandma. It's incredible." She paused, carefully choosing her words. "I feel like I'm starting to understand Uncle Elvis in a way I never did before. Not just the performer, but the person, the one who wanted to be understood for more than just his music." Uncle Ray, always perceptive, looked at her with a knowing glint in his eye. "Ah, so you're seeing it, are you? The boy from Tupelo. That's the real magic, Lily. The flashy stuff, that's just a show. But the heart, that's where the truth lies." He took a sip of his coffee. He was always searching, that boy. Searching for something deeper, something real. Lily nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Uncle Ray, in his quiet wisdom, had always understood a part of Elvis that the world often overlooked. He was, she agreed softly. He was always searching for a place to be truly himself, a place of peace. She couldn't tell them about the room, not directly, but she could share the spirit of what she had found. I think he found it," she said, looking at Uncle Ray. "That quiet place, that sanctuary he talked about." Uncle Ray's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise and understanding passing through them. He didn't press, didn't ask for details. He simply nodded slowly, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "Good," he said, his voice husky. "I always hoped he did. He deserved it." In that moment, Lily realized she had shared a part of the secret, not through words or revelation, but through a shared understanding. Uncle Ray, too, had longed for Elvis to find peace, and Lily's quiet affirmation provided that closure for him. It was a connection across generations, a silent acknowledgement of the man behind the myth. Over the next few weeks, Lily continued her internship at Graceland, but her visits were different now. She walked the halls with a new reverence, a deeper appreciation. When she saw the famous jumpsuits, she no longer just saw the glitter. She imagined the man wearing them, yearning for a moment of quiet reflection in his secret room. When she heard his voice on the audio tour, she heard the vulnerability, the longing for authenticity that she now knew lay beneath the powerful vocals. She often found herself drawn to the basement, to that unassuming alcove. She never went back into the room. She didn't need to. The knowledge of its existence and the profound meaning of its contents was enough. It was a quiet anchor, a tangible symbol of Elvis's inner life. Lily learned to hold the secret, to carry its weight with grace and respect. She understood that some truths are meant to be private, meant to honor the quiet dignity of a person's soul. This secret wasn't hers to expose. It was hers to protect. Her experience at Graceland had been due. She had come seeking an unknown room, and she had found a deeper understanding of her family's legacy of the human heart and of the complex nature of fame. Elvis Presley was still the king, a global icon who changed music forever. But for Lily, he was now also the man who sought a quiet sanctuary, the artist who poured his soul into hidden poems, the father who wrote heartfelt letters to his daughter, the son who cherished a dried gardenia for his mother. Graceland remained a monument to a legend, but for Lily, it was now also a testament to a quiet, profound truth, that even the biggest stars need a place where they can simply be themselves, where they can find their home, brick by metaphorical brick, built with the deepest longings of their heart. And somewhere within its grand walls, that secret room, his sanctuary continued its silent watch, forever holding the hidden heart of the king.